Hey everyone, welcome to our VIP Sports Physical Therapy Mentorship Program as part of our IO Sports Therapy Education 12 monthly group calls that we're going to be having. So this is going to be introducing the VIP mentorship portion of this IO Sports Therapy Education. So we're going to go through kind of the 12 months of topics that we have established already as a group that we felt was going to be most productive for you to learn something every single month, in addition to Q&As for each one of our members that are joining these calls. Now, again, you will be able to dictate if we want to go in a different direction. And that's what we really encourage, so that we have really good discussions during these group mentoring calls. But we wanted to include some structure around this as well, so that in the event you can't maybe make it to one of the calls, but you want to watch one of the recordings, now you have something to refer back to and you know what we're going to be discussing for that month. So let's dive into what month one looks like for our VIP all access mentorship calls. So month one is going to be more career planning in sports physical therapy. So we'll talk about everything from private practice to hybrid opportunities to pro team sport opportunities. The unique thing about our mentorship program for this month is that you're going to have three mentors between myself, Ross, and Matt that can talk about every single opportunity across the spectrum. Because, for example, Ross has worked in private practice for the last 25 years as an owner, but he's also worked full time as an NHL sports physical therapist, and he can tell you everything from what's it like to actually work in the training room to what's it like being on the road with the team, but also running a private practice that has multiple clinics at the same time. Myself and Matt can talk more from the residency standpoint, but also from the private practice standpoint in a unique setting that we have at IO Sports Therapy, because we work with the sports agency every single day and we run different combine groups for them. So we can talk a little bit about the private practice from what we did before we got to IO Sports Therapy Education and how we got to IO Sports Therapy Education and some of those skill sets that we had to learn to be productive, but also to be really, really successful in that practice. So that's going to be month one, career planning, and then hopefully asking you guys about some of the things that you want to get better with and some of the opportunities that you're looking for, so that we can help guide you and speed up that process. That's the whole point of the mentorship. Month two is going to be all about ACL and return to sport protocols. So we'll talk a little bit about functional testing progressions and some of the different batteries that you can consider. How does that help you make better decisions as a sports physical therapist with the particular client you have? How to use technology such as VALD force frames or Kangatex or dynamos or force plates or catapult systems. All these things we want to discuss so that you can understand, okay, if you have access to technology, how do you use it? If you don't have access to technology, then what else can you consider? We want to talk about mental readiness. We want to talk about the mental side of things that we're learning more and more is so important in this process. And then finally, we'll go through a few case studies so you can have a little bit more context behind some of the things we've learned for ACL return to sport. So that's going to be month two. Month three is going to be all about mastering interprofessional communication. And this is one of those soft skills that can make or break your career. Meaning that if you understand how to be a good team member and discuss things with every single team member and stakeholder in the athlete rehabilitation process, you're going to go really far in your career and you're going to have a lot more opportunities. So we'll talk about how to talk with doctors and sports medicine surgeons. We'll talk about how to communicate with athletic trainers in the training room and outside of the training room. We'll talk about how to be effective with strength coaches and understanding what type of communication style and understanding from a strength and conditioning background that you need to understand to have better communication so that you can progress your athlete together across the spectrum. And then understanding, how to build other referral networks into things like massage therapists, different dry needlers if you can't do that, like we can't in California, MRI places, when to actually refer out to imaging, how to establish a network with maybe a sports agency, maybe a coach that's in your local area, and how to kind of broach that subject and make them become a trusted advisor and a potential referral source for you. So we're going to talk about all that types of communication in month three. Month four is going to be all about testing with force frames / Kangatex, and dynamometry testing. So, we personally use VALD. We've had that for years, and we seem to like it. But we're going to talk about just how to actually use some of this equipment so that if it's your first time using it, or you have it, but nobody's really taught you and you haven't been able to get to a course yet, we'll teach you about some of the protocols we've put into place and how we made it really simple and effective so that we can use it on a daily basis and have better clinical decision making, but also help our athletes become better educated. So we'll talk all about technology in this month and how to really test effectively for different types of injuries and rehabilitation protocols. Month 5 is going to be all about hamstring rehabilitation. So we're going to talk about, okay, what happens on acute day 1 when someone comes in with a potential hamstring strain, all the way through that return to sport progression, and how to make it a little bit more of an effective, streamlined process so that you can say, okay, this is the decision I'm making, and this is why for the next phase, or these are the things I'm going to look out for so that I can make better decisions across the spectrum for all of my hamstring rehabilitation athletes. And then also how to include some of the technology if you have access to it. Month 6 is going to be all about jump training. Okay, how do you determine when someone's ready to start jumping, right? What's your criteria, and how do you advance that or regress that if something's not going right? So we're going to talk in month 6 about how to progress your jump training for your athletes in rehabilitation all the way through full power training and plyometrics. Month 7 is going to be all about return to sprinting. And this is going to be a great month because we're going to talk about some of the technical drills that you can go through as you're working through that return to running and sprinting mastery so that you understand, okay, how do I get this athlete ready to put force into and out of the ground as quickly as possible? And then from there, we're going to talk about how to progress that from the research side of things, but also just from things that we've learned anecdotally over time so we can put those together for you and help you feel really sound about returning someone back to sprinting effectively. Month 8 is going to be all about force plate analysis. So we're going to teach you guys about how to start using force plates effectively in rehabilitation settings. The nice thing about force plates now is they're a little bit more affordable. So if you have access to them, or you might be able to in the future, this is going to be a great month where you can actually start to learn about how to use a force plate and what are the metrics I want to look for, and just keep it simple right now. So we'll go through what are the basics to look at, and then from there, how do you branch out into some more advanced metrics once you feel comfortable with that. Month 9 is going to be all about orthobiologics. So we're going to talk about PRP, BMAC, other different types of injection, orthovisc, synvisc, all these things that are becoming more and more common in sports medicine. But then also, what's the protocol afterwards, right? If you haven't worked with a lot of orthobiologics, you're going to want to understand what can you do, what can't you do, what shouldn't you do, what kind of education do you need to understand to educate your athlete, but also feel comfortable treating someone coming in after an injection. So we'll talk about all those protocols and what we've been able to learn from working with some of these great doctors out here. Month 10 is going to be for those of you that are interested in more of that kind of private practice model where you can build a successful sports physical therapy business, or maybe it's a side hustle you want to do. So we'll talk about scaling and growth, marketing strategies, how to price yourself out. We're personally a out-of-network and cash-based practice, so we'll talk about that a little bit more than the insurance side, but we'll include the insurance side as well so you have some understanding of what to look out for, and then brand development as well. So this will be a great one for those of you that are more entrepreneurial in nature and want to build out a successful sports PT business. Month 11 is going to be all about change of direction. Again, what are the tests or milestones you're looking for to feel comfortable starting someone off with some type of change of direction? What's the very first thing you do if you're starting somebody out in change of direction for the first time? We're going to talk about all those things so you can feel comfortable understanding when to start somebody and how to progress them. And then finally, month 12, at the end of the year, we're going to talk about kind of a year in review, future planning, going through some case reviews that you guys can submit to us, help you understand what are the next steps, right? This is going to be a lifelong journey, and we're hoping that you understand, okay, we've gotten some things out of this year, but we want to progress further. How do we do that, right? So we'll have some really, really specific things to think about, but also a lot of Q&A that day so that we can go through and say, okay, what's the next step for every single one of you? And you should hopefully feel really, really comfortable in your next step, in your next journey of becoming a better sports physical therapist.